Deputy Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our honored guest, Kairat Kelimbetov, the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Kazakhstan, who will talk to us this afternoon about the resource curse, the financial crisis, and Kazakhstan's long-term strategy. I'd just like to make a quick note of regret on behalf of the Dean of the London Business School, who conveys his apologies for not being here today, but would have been delighted to be here. For me, it's a privilege to be here at the London Business School introducing such a distinguished speaker and guest. I am myself an alumnus of London Business School, having completed my MBA here in 1989, and since then I have been an investment banker responsible for the natural resource sector, particularly oil and gas, and currently I am the co-head of the energy practice for Europe, the Middle East and Africa at Morgan Stanley. I would like to now pass on to Mr. Artur Krygov from the Kazakh British Chamber of Commerce, who will say a few words, and then Mr. Geisa will also say a few words. Thank you.
Dear students, faculty members, my name is Artur Krygov and I'm the Managing Director of Kazakh British Chamber of Commerce. I just wanted to quickly, before speech by Deputy Prime Minister, to let you know that recently there has been created a Al-Farabi scholarship at Cambridge University. We basically, together with Cambridge, have created a scholarship for anyone who is interested in studying Central Asia or any subject about Central Asia and Kazakhstan in particular at Cambridge University. It is open to all students, not just Kazakhstan nationals, but anyone who is interested in any subject to do with Central Asia or Kazakhstan. And also just to inform that there's been at the same time opened a Central Asian Innovation Fund, which will also deal with different ideas that some graduates or faculty members might have. They can come to this fund and present their ideas. For more information on any of these initiatives, please feel free to contact our office of Kazakh British Chamber of Commerce in London. You can find contact information on Google. You can find on our website, which is kbcc.org.uk, or you can contact me later after this lecture. Thank you very much. And please welcome the Deputy Prime Minister of the Republic of Kazakhstan.
Let me just say a quick word. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are very delighted to have the very distinguished speaker today at London Business School, Mr. Kelimbetov. We are very glad. I'm very glad to greet Mr. Kelimbetov on behalf of LBS students and Kazakhstan community of London Business School. Kazakhstan community of London Business School is not really that big. We have around 4 Kazakh graduates every year, but it's fast and it's growing. And
it's okay.
yeah, and Kazakh community is very active in the life of London Business School. So this event is organized by London Business School in cooperation with Energy Club, and as the co-president of London Business School Energy Club, I'm very honored to introduce you to Mr. Kelimbetov. Mr. Kelimbetov is currently the Deputy Prime Minister of Kazakhstan. Prior to his role, he was the Minister of Economic Development and Trade. Before that, he was the head of President's Administration, CEO of Sovereign Wealth Fund. And we are very pleased to have you, and please welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for receiving me today here in London Business School. It's actually a big honor for me to, let's say, to talk to you about the Kazakhstani issues. Actually, we choose 3 main interesting topics, which will be, I think, interesting not only for Kazakhstani students, but also for the let's say, London Business School and the professor staff and other person who interested what's going on in energy-rich countries, in Kazakhstan particularly. So let's divide it for three sides. One is long-term strategy. The second is issues of particular issues in the strategy about oil curves, and number three is issues where we are now and what happened in Kazakhstan during the financial crisis. Actually, you know, just small background. We've got independence just 20 years ago after Soviet Union collapse. I don't think that we were during the Soviet time the most promising, let's say, countries. Or we remember is that during the Soviet Union time, the other Soviet republics like Ukraine and Uzbekistan will be maybe had a more potential from the first point of view. But I think the model which was chosen by President Nazarbayev as the president of Kazakhstan was based on the main simple principle to bring best international practice from all over the world. And I think the reforms which was done in Kazakhstan in 90s and in recent years was focus and used all the interesting model for us. At the beginning, so you remember, we did a huge macroeconomics and structural reforms. It was a massive privatization program, and you know that like 75% of the economy in Kazakhstan at the mid of the 90s belongs to the private investors. And from the beginning, the President Nazarbayev brought a lot of the investors from the global markets. Was let's say the current number of FDI to Kazakhstan since those time is 150 billion US dollars. If you just remind you the size of the market, we are just 16 million people, and I think this is the number one indicators in terms of in comparison with the Central Asia countries and other former Soviet Union or even Eastern European countries. And definitely mostly it was investment to the energy sector, it was investment to the oil and gas, and the Kazakhstan well known like a biggest oil producer. Now we produce 1.4 million barrels per day, and we are in top 20 oil producers in the world. So you probably know about the most famous project is we did a Tingis with Chevron from US. We are doing the Karachaganak with a consortium of the major companies, where, by the way, the British represents BG, and we've also working under the phase one of Kashagan, which I think the first quarter of the next year will be the first commercial oil in Kazakhstan, and we have in this consortium Shell and Exxon Mobil and Total as well. So this is these three projects gave us opportunities to double the oil production, and I think in 10-15 years we will produce 3 million barrels per day. So 3 million barrels per day, I think, and you know very well, you study here, is could bring Kazakhstan to top 5-7 oil producers in the world, and that's good news. What about let's say, but from the other side, and you know it's very well, if you take all the oil-rich countries, there is a problem which in economic theory some scientists call like oil curves, but nobody particularly could give a definition about oil curves. But one of the explanation that the country with enormous amount of oil or mining unfortunately not developed so efficiently, so fast like the countries without any resources. And this is kind of a paradox. From the one of the reasons of this is there is some economic issues which we call the Dutch disease, and it was happened in the 70s in Holland. You know, when the price suddenly they discovered the gas, then it was damage to the development of other subsectors of the economy, because when a lot of the liquidity come to the country, unfortunately, it's create imbalances in terms of the investment, in terms of the let's say best people, in terms of the financing, attention to this sector, and that's create the big problem in the country. And if you take, coming back to the list of the oil-rich country, it's very difficult to identify very successful economy. So I could ask you, what do you think about what are the top 3 successful oil-rich country and successful in terms of the, let's say, economic development, sustainable economic growth, in terms of the inclusive growth, the equal opportunities for all the citizens of the government, of the population. It's a very limited number of the countries. So let's say, I think no doubt it's Norway. And Norway is a really good benchmark, and we actually study the Norwegian experience at the beginning. A little bit close, it's maybe more long historical tradition, another different historical context, but I think is very interesting for us was, and still interesting, to study Australian and Canadian experience, because it's also a lot of similarities. I will come back to them later on. So when we've got independence, it was very weak institutional capacity of the government in Kazakhstan, because we were one of the, let's say, small republic among Soviet Union. We didn't have a Ministry of Foreign Office, we didn't have a Ministry of Defense before, and it was not any own independent economic policy. It was not any traditions. So what happened in Kazakhstan during 20 years, the president, government, let's say, prepared a number of programs. From one side, from the other side, definitely the president paid attention to the people. So the young students, we established special program which called Bolshak. I think that some people here also part of this program, where we sent best young students from Kazakhstan to the best 100 universities in the world. And actually, the number of this program, we're trying to send about 3,000 people every year. And even it was a difficult time in the mid-90s. We start from 500. Now we could send 3,000 people, and people start to study in the best universities, starting from Harvard, Stanford, and some prefer the US universities. A big number of students prefer UK universities, and so we're proud that we had graduates from Oxford, Cambridge, London School of Economics, UCL, LBS, and I think, and then they will start come back and to have a significant position in the government, in the national companies. And already it's a history when the young generation became a member of government, member of the boards of the big national companies. And I think it was the most significant decision which was done those years. And the president actually asked the special group of the people to prepare the draft of the long-term strategy. It was year 1996. And during 12 months together with professors with different universities in the world, we study the experience which will be appropriate to Kazakhstan. And we study what happened in Malaysia, in Singapore, in other Asian tigers, what happened in Australia, in Canada, what will be interesting from American and European perspective. And then we choose the model which we called the diversification program of Kazakhstan. So the whole idea was not only, let's say, oriented for the mineral resources, but really try to develop the other non-oil subsectors of our economy. And together with Harvard Business School, we actually study the particular clusters which we could develop in Kazakhstan. And Professor Michael Porter was one of the leaders of this project. We create special industrial innovation program. And among the clusters, we choose pilot 7 clusters, which some related to the mineral resources, like, for example, oil and gas service industry, petrochemical industry, or metallurgy, which were linked to the competitive advantage of Kazakhstan. We have enormous amount of oil and gas and opportunities for mining. From the other side, we also think about that we have to develop such areas like food processing based on agriculture tradition in Kazakhstan, or tourism, or construction materials and others. So we start to develop, and it was a massive development of the economy of Kazakhstan. The annual GDP growth from year 2000 till year 2008 was about 9 and 10%. And we double our GDP. It was the first and main goal of the first 10 years plan of the long-term strategy, which we have till year 2030. Unfortunately, in year 2004, year 2007 started all the issues which, let's say, from one side were blessed by the oil, from the other side the issues of overheating of the economy start to suffer it to sustainable development of the country. So if you remember, in year 2000, it was a massive growth of the crediting in Kazakhstan. The growth of the credit portfolio was about 50, sometimes 80% per year. From one side, it's a good news. The economy is growing, booming, or even over-booming, and then over-crediting. And definitely no any banking regulator or even banks itself could really regulate or control and really watch for all of this process, because it's very difficult. It was booming of the real estate sector in Kazakhstan, mostly based on construction in Almaty and Astana, and the price for the apartments which was built sometimes were on the level of New York and London, and which is not fair actually. And it was happened till from 3 years, from year 2004 till year 2007. And 1 year before the Lehman Brothers collapse, the banks start to realize that it's a difficult situation. And so, you know, it was a classical mismatch when the banks try to borrow money from the international markets from one side, and from the other side for the short period of time. And from the other side, they start to invest for the long-term projects. And a year before the Lehman Brothers collapse, the international banks stopped the financing of Kazakhstani banking system. And it was really very difficult situation. Everyone realized that this is, let's say, very bad news, and the government started to prepare the anti-crisis program. We asked some investment banks to really do a stress test in the banking sector, and the stress test shows that this is not enough capital in the most systemic bank in Kazakhstan. But before, you remember, after the banking sector reform, we were the best banking system among CIS countries, which grow rapidly, but at the same time, this growth was not sustainable. And then we realized that we have two linked to each other great problem, which is one of the problems in banking sector. From the other side is the problems of real estate sector. And just coming back to also to the background, we just established the banking institution in Kazakhstan, and we before we had let's say, and all the banks were in private hands. And from the other side, the people of Kazakhstan, when they actually put their money in deposits, they still have a Soviet mentality that the banks is something, let's say, belongs to the state or the government, and the government or central bank or someone should be responsible if something is wrong. And this is mentality still belong, I think it's not only in Kazakhstan, but in other countries as well. We've seen what was the panic when here was the Northern Rock issues or something like this. It was very similar in Kazakhstan. From the other side, the same was in parallel. The people invest money or to the banking sector, or they try to get a speculative revenues from the investment to the real estate. And it works like a financial pyramids, and it stopped. And all the people come to the government and ask the government, when are you gonna give our money back? And definitely it was a huge problem. From one side was a panic in the financial markets. From the other side, it was a huge social tension among population because every family has all kind of the investment to this sector. And the government decided to use own reserves. So coming back to the year 2000, first time we, after all of these consequences of Asian financial crisis 1998, we realized that from the first real big oil revenues to the budget, we have to start to save some of them to the special reserve fund. And again, we studied the Norwegian experience. The Norwegians were smart enough to create special reserve fund, which we call the oil fund, Norwegian oil fund, which is sovereign wealth fund actually. And they put the extra oil revenues over them. We also start to put extra oil revenues to this fund. We call it national fund, and it was established in year 2001. The first investment to this fund from it's actually not particular institution, it's an account of the Ministry of Finance, which managed by Central Bank of Kazakhstan. And the first investment was about 200 million US dollars. It was not big. Right now it's 51 billion US dollars. Even we use 15 billion during the crisis year 2007, 2010. So we immediately create kind of the anti-crisis program after the stressed test which was done by the investment bank. We understand that we have immediately recapitalized the systemic banks, and at the same time we realize if we recapitalize them, it's probably we should become shareholders in order to control what is going on in the banks, and is there really right processes, right management over there. And all of 4 banks among 35 were too big to fail, and we have to help them. And everyone happened like in this famous movie or famous book, Too Big to Fail. So we decided how to help, where the management team is ready to continue the activity, they just need the liquidity, and where we figure out the huge fraud. I'm talking about the BTA and Alliance Bank, and we figure out the fraud, and the black hole of those banks in a balance sheet was about 10 billion US dollars. You can imagine it's 10 billion US dollars, 10% of those time of 7% of GDP of Kazakhstan. Is much more in than relatively with the Madoff case in the United States, because let's say even it's 60 billion with Madoff case, here is 10 billion, and you could compare the GDP of the United States and Kazakhstan. And definitely we understand that we have to recapitalize those banks from one side. From the other side, the level of the debt of the banking sector in Kazakhstan was about 50% of GDP of Kazakhstan, and which mostly was related to these 4 systemic banks. And we realized that we have to sit and talk to the creditors and investors to those banks, and decided should we, let's say, give the opportunities for these banks to survive, to save these banks, and then to get some returns of our investment, or let's say it will be a real bankruptcy. It was a very difficult situation. You know that was first restructuring of BTA and Alliance shows that so a lot of the issues should be solved amicable way. There is a rules which called equal treatment to any investors. We figure out so too many investors to those banks from different countries with a different maturity was the main proposal was a burden sharing approach. Burden sharing means that it's again still problem in European Union. We show to the investors from one side the goodwill of Kazakhstan to invest some new money. From the other side, we ask from investors also to write off some of their investment. And it's very difficult when the big investment banks really should to write off some own investment. And we create, this process should be really transparent. We create a in each case the steering committee where there were different representatives of the different group of the creditors. So finally it was very democratic procedures when we considered that we thinking about some pie of the opportunities, and the steering committee decided how to distribute all of this pie among the different groups, and then all the creditors according to the legislation in Kazakhstan should be voted. And In BTA case, in the first restructuring, the voting was about more 90% supports of the creditors, the scheme, and the financial formula, which was proposed by BTA. Why I'm talking so in details about this case? Because from the beginning, the Kazakhstan choose the model that we shouldn't screwed up the investors, because even the investor has a short memory. The investment climate and investment reputation of Kazakhstan we should save it. And during the crisis, we diversify also the nature of the investors to Kazakhstan. In year 2008 and 2010, starting massive investment from the other countries, including Russia and China. Especially China use these opportunities very well. They invest to the energy sector, especially oil and gas. And since those time now, the Chinese oil producers now produce in Kazakhstan more than 25% of the oil output. And I think so they increase the significant their role in this sector. And also they provide 10 years, $10 billion US credits to us. So I think so the Kazakhstani government fixed the crisis very well. Banking sector, when we fulfill all the uncompleted construction in real estate, and everything was fixed and solved. But within those time, because we remember we based on the principle of diversification of the economy, we continue the execution of the big industrial innovation program, which mostly means realization of the investment project. It was a big construction of the railways from in Kazakhstan, which connected China with the Middle East markets. It was a new construction of the oil and gas pipeline. If, for example, in year 2009, the GDP growth in Kazakhstan was just 1.3%, which is a small amount in comparison with the 9%. At the same time, in Russia, it was -8%. And next year, in 2009, it became 7.2, and 2011 became 7.5. And we come back to the previous agenda, what we should do, what particularly sectors and how we should help to the private sector. And we understand that we should realize what are the sources for funding of any industrialization program of Kazakhstan. From one side, we consider it our reserve fund, but we understand that we shouldn't focus on reserve fund. They have a stabilization function and function for the fund of future generation. And I think we, based on principles that we should, again, bring investment, bring FDI as much as possible. So that's why actually we start to create the special system, and Ministry of Industry and New Technologies create a special system among and open the branches around the world. So in order to start to knock to the doors to the big companies with idea to bring it to Kazakhstan. At the same time, in year, just a small geo-economic background, in year 2009 we start to create together with Russia and Belarus the custom union. And now I think so we have a plan in year 2015 create an economic union. Before we based definitely on the European model. Now we just start to what is the problem with the European model in order to avoid them. And we start to think about the massive privatization program. And the beginning of this program will be the next months when we open the program of the People's IPO. So we propose the shares of the blue chips, national companies which belongs to the government, is mostly part of the sovereign wealth fund Samruk Kazina companies, like daughter companies of KMG or daughter companies of KTZ or Kazatomprom or other famous companies, I think, which you know very well. And it started. There is a political decision which was done by the president. At the beginning, it will be on the level of 10%. But first opportunities we provide to the people of Kazakhstan. We think that this, from political side, is very fair political decision. But from the other side, we understand that on the secondary market, immediately the global investors will be interested to buy out these shares. So coming back to the long-term strategy issues, we understand that the oil curse challenge is always challenge, and we try to think more optimistic way to think that it's definitely it's a challenge, but is also the real chance to deliver it good reforms, good ideas in terms of the economic development of Kazakhstan. So let me stop here. It's a small background what was happening in Kazakhstan last 15, 20 years, and I'm ready to answer to your questions. Thank you very much. I know that a lot of Kazakh students here, which were looking for jobs in government or find some Kazakhstan, please use these opportunities.
Can I ask a question? My name is Zhong Bo, I'm the MBA 2008 LBS MBA student. I'm at Lumini now. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much for your presentation. And you mentioned Kazakhstan already have very well-established oil and gas industry, and you are developing petrochemicals, food production, and construction materials. I think you have been very successful in attracting investors. Investors go there for the vast resource over there, but they're also interested in understanding how can they sell their products and generate a revenue. And as one of your students here mentioned to me, you are one of the largest country in the world. By the same time, you are the single largest landlocked country in the world. So would you talk about your trading policy, and especially a lot of people now in the market say China might slow down. So what will happen if China slows down?
It's actually not a problem only of Kazakhstan. It's a problem of world economy. If China slowed down, definitely was a huge problem for all of us. And just coming back to my previous notes, yes, right, we are a very small market, 16 million people, and we understand that we have to get access to the bigger market. And one of the ideas to get access to the bigger market was the idea of creation of a custom union. So you know that we have some historical legacy. We were in one country, in Russia, in Belarus, and the custom union creates market 170 million people. Is bigger, but not the same size like a Chinese market, definitely. That's why we not stop the negotiation with China as well. And from one side, we are in a framework of the custom union. From the other side, this year or beginning of next year, we expect that the Kazakhstan will get access to the WTO. It means that it will be so the same rules, and we could work actively in China. And we not stop work with China. So you know that we increase the capacity of railways between Kazakhstan and China, and capacity of the roads between Kazakhstan and China. Now we want to double the capacity of oil pipeline to China. So we are very reliable partners, Kazakhstan and China, and we understand that, and by the way, not only the oil and gas interesting for China, but also the mining and metallurgy areas. But frankly say, we scared about some hypothetical, let's say, huge problem in China. We think that it's temporary base. Definitely everything will depend what's going on with American and European economies, but we are looking more optimistic way.
Thank you.
Yep, question?
My name is Anna Scovello. I'm also an alumni. I'm a Master's in Finance 2007. I also have the opportunity to work for ArcelorMittal, which has Kazakhstan very close to his heart. My question is related to what you mentioned about Kazakhstan joining the WTO hopefully next year, and the impact that you see that Russia joining WTO this year. How do you see these changing the dynamic on the trade relations worldwide?
For Kazakhstan, it was a dramatic change. Actually, the trade between Kazakhstan and Russia and Kazakhstan and Belarus was increased dramatically by like 30% increase in just year 2010 and 2011. And we expect that it will be more, let's say, closer trade, because we exclude any trade barriers between us. There is no custom border between Russia and Kazakhstan. And just give you some visualization, the border between Kazakhstan and Russia is 7,000 kilometers, common border. It's more bigger than between United States and Canada, you can imagine. And that's why it's very important for us to have very good trade relationship. From the other side, sometimes people ask what is, let's say, links between accession to WTO. Russia got access before, and Russia is a much bigger economy, and the Russian negotiations was very tough from one side. From the other side, for Russia was more simpler to have to get some agreement with the biggest markets in the world, because they are actually very attractive markets. And we joined to WTO mostly on let's say on a level of the Russian agreements, which is very good news for Kazakhstan. We will never achieve it with before without Russia, and I think it's a good news for us from one side. From the other side, for some particularly consumption sectors, it's not good news, because it's now protected for some Russian producers. But I think in a long-term perspective, there are two good news for us. From one side, whatever transition period will be for any sectors in Kazakhstan, everyone realizes that you should competitive not tomorrow but today. And from the this second, and it's the only chance to survive. And the, let's say, second good news is, if we are a member of the WTO, everyone realizes which rules are working in Kazakhstan, and it's a good not to explain several times to investors where is Kazakhstan is located.
Yeah, question.
Good afternoon. I'm Aldayeva Kamila. My name is Aldayeva Kamila, and I'm a State Banking and International Finance student at Harvard Business School. And I have a question concerning a national oil fund. As you mentioned, currently we're using a Norwegian model, and as you know, Norway oil fund is mainly invested into the foreign assets. But for Kazakhstan, why can't we use these resources for the development of our own economy by providing loans to the population through banks? Because, as you know, last year profitability of national fund was 1.7%, and thus for the population, if banks can borrow from national fund and provide loans at much lower rates to the population.
It's not so simple arithmetics when we're talking about that the revenues, the level of the revenues of the national fund is just 1.8. When we're talking about such big amount of money like 51 billion US dollars, the most important issues is saving this money rather than to make, let's say, earn money. And was from the beginning very conservative strategy for the national fund, because we invest mostly to US and UK and other EU countries bonds, government bonds, and the idea is to save this money. Now I think that a lot of the financial experts here, so some people talking about the diversification as interesting tools could be proposed now, except beyond the conservative strategy, as risky it's became for us. Definitely, we now start to think about the more risky package for the national fund, and the central bank and government now in discussion to create national investment company, which will be part of the central bank, but all will be responsible for diversification of the portfolio of the national fund. But from the other side, when it's a big discussion internal, some opposition parties also in Kazakhstan propose to invest to Kazakhstan, and when we just explained that the issues of the Norwegian fund and Kazakhstani fund was a sterilization for the macroeconomic purposes, because all this money come to Kazakhstan, so tomorrow we will be in trouble. So everybody understand it, but not believe to the government. And I think that the issues of to provide, let's say, loans to the population in these terms, and sometimes the people start to criticize the banking sector or the government, why is it not so over booming in credit sector in Kazakhstan? And in this time, I remember the advice of one of our consultants, Ricardo Hausman, who is a professor of Harvard Kennedy School, government school, he actually explained his views on the banking sector. The role of banking sector is not only crediting economy, but the main role is not crediting not appropriate people in the economy. So, and I think so we all evident of these latest years. Thank you.
My question's regarding sustainable development. You know, there is a big awakening to the sustainable city designs and creating more renewable energy. What is, if at all, the kind of work that you're doing in that area, and what are the opportunities for people who are interested in it?
Yeah. Yes, actually, these issues is discussing now very actively in the government of Kazakhstan. We are working under the new strategy on greening the Kazakhstani economy. The current situation is mostly we produce energy based on more than 80% is based on a coal, which is not good on the old technologies. 10% is hydro, and just 0.03 is renewable. And everyone talking about it's a very fashionable, but not realistic yet in Kazakhstan. Maybe some equipment is too expensive, but we understand in order to really have a sustainable growth, so we have to implement all of these principles. Especially we're thinking about using gas more in industries, creation the gas-based petrochemical industries and the gas-based energy station. And this is a big issue. We start to work with Professor Rifkin on these terms, how to fix the problem in the main megapolises. And I think we just at the beginning of this way, frankly say. Not like in Europe, and we amazing what was achieved last 10 years. But I think we should wait even more new technologies in this area. Thank you.
Deputy Prime Minister, you've made reference to a number of models of oil-producing countries in terms of how they work, particularly some of their national oil companies and their sovereign wealth funds. In Kazakhstan, what do you see the role of the national oil company, both domestically as well as potentially internationally?
Let me explain also. We have right now two sovereign wealth funds. One is a national fund, reserve fund, which I explained. We call it national fund, where we just have a conservative strategy. But, and was a very right question, is who will be responsible for development of the economic development of the country? And after the privatization in the mid of the 90s, we anyway have some companies which belongs to the government, and it's kind of the natural monopolies, which is let's say oil transportation or railways system, or the let's say the national oil and gas company. We study the experience of Norwegian again, and Statoil experience is like a benchmark for Kazakhstan. We create the Kazmunaygas at the beginning of our independence. Now it's a big company. The role of this company is huge, especially in terms of the execution of the big projects such as Kashagan and Karachaganak. And so this is from one side, we are partners with the big companies where we, let's say, earn money jointly. From the other side, this is a model and scheme how to transfer technologies, how to, let's say, choose and bring the new knowledge which belongs to the major oil companies to Kazakhstan. And usually when people talk about the oil sector, they're thinking that this is just the raw materials production. It's not like this. I think the oil sector is the most promising area for innovation in the world, and we consider it oil in industry like a locomotive for development of Kazakhstan, from the size in GDP and from the opportunities created around the oil sector or oil and gas service industries. For example, like it was a special energy hubs in Qatar or in Norway, in Stavanger, or what happened when the oil will be over. We study the experience, what the countries develop in Aberdeen, in Stavanger, in Houston, and it's also good opportunities for from technological point of view. So the role of the national oil and gas company, so first of all, to be operator of the government and big projects in order to get all of the advantages of this is from one side is not only the financial stuff but also the local content. Yes, opportunities for create new value using the massive oil development.
Deputy Prime Minister, can you speak a little bit about your focus on other sectors outside of the oil and gas or energy sector, especially agriculture, and what the government is doing to encourage those?
So we have very vast geography. The territory of Kazakhstan like equal to the whole territory of the West Europe. And if you hear in the West Europe, 500 million people are living, we just have 16 million. Let's create huge opportunities for the development of agriculture in Kazakhstan and food processing industry. Before it was very non-efficient technologies in Soviet Union time. We mostly famous like exporter of wheat to the global markets. We are in top 8 exporter of wheat in the world, and we export like 5-7 million tons per year. And at the beginning, it was we just thought about how to provide the enough food for ourselves. Right now, we realize that we have to develop a new strategy. Especially, we are next door to Russia and China and India, and just see the situation in China. They produce now 110 million tons per year, and the consumption is 110 million tons per year. So they actually the consumption will be increased because of the increasing of population, and the productivity now is achieved the limits. So now the productivity is like 50 cents per hectare and 0.5 ton per hectare. And in Kazakhstan is, let's say, 20 times less. And this is opportunities for the increasing productivity from one side. From the other side, if the price for the wheat, and you know that just last 5 years the price increased 2 times, and it will be increasing and increasing because the population is growing. Now we are 7 billion in the world. It will be even more. In year 2050, we expect that the world will need the Kazakhstani food, especially organic food. And if it will be huge, let's say, prices for the products, the transport logistics became not so important. And we start to create transport logistics. We start to create special terminals in ports in China, in the ports we are thinking about in the ports in Iran, in the Persian Gulf, and in Mediterranean. And I think it's a very promising future for development this industry in Kazakhstan. From the other side, for example, right now China imported the soya from the Argentina, and you can imagine we could produce also the same quality of soy and to provide it to the western part of China. This is also good opportunities because the middle class in China or in India will increase. The different expectation, it could be 300 million people. The structure of food will change dramatically, and that's create opportunities for the food processing industry as well.
Yes, Masha Shvetsova. I'm a former national of Kazakhstan, unfortunately, and I'm also graduating from London Business School, from the Executive MBA program here and Columbia Business School. Yes, you've mentioned the national IPO. Unfortunately, I'm a former national of Kazakhstan, so I guess I'm not going to be participating in people's IPO. But you also said that there's 16 million people now. It's the 9th biggest country in the world. And there was a huge brain run after the Soviet Union collapsed, and there was lots of people who left Kazakhstan for various reasons to different countries, me being one of them. However, there was not a lot done in terms of immigration policies and bringing people back, expatriation, or just in general immigration policies of actually trying to expand number of people that live there and number of people that work there and so forth. So are you trying to address it in any way? Because Kazakhstan does not even allow dual citizenship so far. So is anything going to be done in that stage? That's a very selfish question.
Before the IPO.
I think the migration issues is very critical issues. Is again what happened. in macro terms, in last years, the multiculturalism theory is in very bad shape. But anyway, so let's explain why people left Kazakhstan. During the Soviet Union, the Stalin's regime sent a lot of the people, different peoples and nations, to locate it in Kazakhstan. And it was Greeks, it was Germans, and when the Soviet Union, after Soviet Union collapsed, Greeks came back to Greece, and Germans came back to Germany. And I don't have any reason to actually to provide them. Actually, some of them start to come back because some of them was not realized themselves in those countries. They start to be create communication between Greeks and Germany and Kazakhstani economy, but it's not the massive amount. And also some people moved to Russia because they located. They were in different reasons in Kazakhstan: military, industrial, etc. It's changed. It was at the mid of 90s. And definitely it was a big shock for Kazakhstan because the size of economy shrinked, and because it was also smart people who put their skills to development of investment in previous years. But the demographic issues, those, let's say, we come back to the previous number. Now again we are more than 16 million people because it was a big growth of the population in Kazakhstan. From the other side, we start to realize, so we have to bring smart people to Kazakhstan. We provide different opportunities for the expatriates. A lot of the people working close to the government in the national companies, like independent directors, like managing directors, and this is the open policy of the Kazakhstani government. This is one news. The second issue is we create a custom union with Russia and Belarus. So among us, among three countries, and I think it will be further among other CIS countries as well, there is no any problems to walk the citizens of other countries to Kazakhstan. You could just change your job places and that's it. Nobody wants to check your citizenship or something like this. So we simplify all the rules, and I think it's also work because for the Kazakhstani growth, which we expect in 2015, we will achieve the growth of GDP, and the GDP per capita will be more than $15,000 US. So, and then we would like to double it in the next decade. We anyway need a lot of people, and we are thinking about this, how to solve this problem. At the same time, there is the issues of national security, which we're also looking very carefully.
Thank you. My name is Sandra Ramalov. I'm representing IAG Bank, Equity Capital Market Division. I also have a question regarding the National IPO program. So as I understand, the first step is to have a listing on Kazakhstan Stock Exchange. And my question is actually, are you planning the secondary listing on any international stock exchange actually to create this platform for investors to involve in this program and to increase the value of our companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So, so first of all, the idea was at the beginning provide for the citizens of Kazakhstan the first right to buy out the shares of those companies, but immediately on the next day the people of Kazakhstan could sell it to anyone. It's a secondary market. So first of all, and we're talking about small amount of the shares, which is less 10-15% in many companies. But and this program is for 3-5 years. At the end of this program, we consider it opportunities for the global IPO for biggest companies. And I think we will come to London or to Hong Kong, and this is the story because the development of Kashagan or Karachaganak needs a lot of money, and we are talking about billions of dollars. Definitely we need new investors like shareholders in KMG and shareholders in consortiums which develop those oil and gas deposits.
Yep, thanks very much.
Thank you very much. So at the end of our meetings, I would like to again thanks the organizers, KBCC and Kazakh community here in LBS. It's a big honor. So we supported like a government every year a lot of students which are going to the best universities, and we are looking forward. And I think that you, first of all, we understand that you, the London opens huge career opportunities for you, and we will be glad to know that you have some experience in some companies. Now we have a agreement with the Lord Mayor of City that we will have some internship program with big lawyer or financial companies here in London to provide you opportunities also to get some experience in particularly very famous company. From one side, from the other side, we are waiting for you in Kazakhstan, and just let me know when you decided to come back. Thank you.
So let me just say a final thank you. So first of all, I would like to thank you, David, and I would like to thank you, Kazakh community of LBS, who actually were very excited that you will be here, and they helped to organize this thing. And we're actually very honored, and we're very delighted that you came today. So let us give you some small present from LBS. That's that's something with the LBS brand. So thanks very much. Thank you.